if the universe is limitless, how it is ever expanding? That's something that I can wrap my around as well. Because it's just sort of conundrum. If it's everything there is, how it is expanding.
Yeah, well, so this one can be, you can think of the expansion of again, when we talk about the expansion of the universe,
Yeah.
keep in mind what we mean by expanding, right? Okay. So what is expanding? Like, how is it, how is it possible that, like I said, like and earlier, this kind of touches upon the thing we talked about earlier, is like the sort of flip side of what we're talking about, this notion that is very vain for humans to try to impose meaning upon things, that when meaning is a human invention. Each individual, by contrast, it's also completely accurate. And each individual human has the right to consider themselves the center of the universe, because we all have the right to consider that. By my physical point here, my observable universe will be this sphere that stretches out in all directions, and yours will be slightly different from mine. So we each have our own sort of like, barely imperceptibly different observable universe on us, and at which we are the center. And so what we're saying when the universe is expanding is that, everything is moving apart from each other in all directions. So like the galaxy that's far away from us is moving away from us. But what happened to make it move away? Like, did something come along and like flick it, like push it apart with his finger or something like that? Or like someone came and hit it with a baseball bat or something? That's not what happened. So what we're saying when we say that the space is, the universe is expanding, we're saying the space itself is being stretched, because space itself, you kind of have to, again, we have to change our brains. So Einstein with general relativity really hit upon this notion that space itself, it doesn't have substance in the sense of, like the luminiferous ether or something like that, but it does have stuffness in the sense that it can flow and it can bend. We know this is the case. In fact, we know it's measurable that space is, the phenomenon of gravity, in fact, is a force. It's accurate to refer to as a force, but the force doesn't arise from the same mechanisms as the other three forces of nature. The other three forces of nature arise due to these, quantum exchange of particles effects. Gravity, the force of gravity arises due to the curvature of space itself, right? So again, the reason why the Earth and the Moon orbit each other due to gravity is that the Earth is creating a little sinkhole in space itself, and then the Moon is sort of constantly falling toward the Earth. And so that's, that, imagine, again, the standard analogy is the big rubber sheet, right? If we stretch the rubber sheet flat and take a marble and I go like that, if I go like that and hit the marble, it goes in a straight line, right? But if I put a bowling ball in the middle, it deforms the sheet. I hit the marble and it curves as it goes around the side of the bowling ball. So we know that space can bend. We also know that space can flow. If you get to extreme enough gravitational situations or conditions, space has like a flowing capacity, like we said in this black hole. The reason why we say light can't escape from a black hole is not, again, it's not like a magic object. What it means is that this is such a gravitationally collapsed object, so much gravity there, that as you're getting closer to this object, space is flowing inward faster. You get to this point of no return. Space is flowing inward faster than the speed of light. So if a light, beam is going this way, but space is flowing faster than it, it's never going to be able to get out of there, right?
Wow.
So this is what we mean. So space itself has a stuffness to it that means that it can bend and flow. So that as a result of that, it's a better, as a consequence, we can think about the expansion of space, the expansion of the universe in a better way. What really is happening is that the fabric of space is being stretched. Now, what's causing that stretching right now, and in fact, the accelerated stretching, that's an open question, this thing known as dark energy. And again, the word dark is not something mysterious. It's just that it doesn't interact via light. It's not a light-based thing. And it's also something we don't understand right now. So it's this kind of dark energy that is somehow pushing apart the fabric of space. So as a result of that, the Big Bang, again, nothing happened. There was no bang. There was no sound, obviously. And it's also, this notion of like, you can also ask the question, where did the Big Bang happen, right? If our universe was enormous, where did the Big Bang happen? Well, it happened everywhere, because again, space started to expand. So you can think about, when I say that we run the YouTube slider of the universe backwards, imagine light in your head. It's like all the galaxies are getting closer and closer together, and then everything gets packed into a tiny, tiny dense point. But really what you should be thinking about instead is that as you're going backwards in time, the fabric of space itself is stretching like a rubber sheet, and it's like three-dimensional rubber sheet, which the analogy breaks down. But then if you go backwards, the fabric of space starts to contract and get closer and closer together. And at some point, that's where that's this sort of like the tiniest possible thing before inflation, right? Was the entirety of the grid, the metric grid of the universe was packed into something really, really small, and all the stuff in the universe was packed in there too. And then that grid started to expand. The fabric of space itself started to expand. That's what inflation is, and that's what the expansion of the universe is. So when you think of it from that perspective instead. What was your question originally?
How the universe can be limitless, but it can be ever expanding.
Yeah. So I think that's the answer. So it's like, and to be clear, it's actually an open question as to whether the universe is limitless, so to speak. The size of the universe, we don't know. We actually don't know the answer to that question. It could be a finite object. In fact, the universe could have a finite size that we don't know what that size is. It also could be infinite in size. And if that's the case, then it starts to get, then we start to get really weird about like, what does it mean to pack an infinite sort of space into something that was small and then expanded? Okay, this is where, I think sometimes these notions of multiverse landscapes come in handy, right? Because you can imagine that the infinity of the sort of landscape existed and ours was sort of like a little bubble, that kind of like a wrinkle that popped into existence inside this enormous landscape. But yeah, I think that mostly answers your question.
Yeah, definitely.